Hello and welcome to Legally Speaking with me, Tarun Nangia. Today's issue is very important. Time and again, we have seen that the executive miserably fails to do its duty in providing essential services to citizens. And this is common across many cities in India. It's not particular to any particular state or city. It is a judiciary then which has to step in to get citizens access to basic requirements. And I'm talking of basic requirements like water. Today is the issue of water supply in India's national capital. We are talking of a $3 trillion economy, which is the world's 5th largest economy, and access to clean water in that city. Now, the reports that have been submitted to the court have clearly said that there is fecal contamination in drinking water. Where? In the Lutyens zone in Delhi. All other areas too, more than 200 samples or so were collected. So there was fecal contamination or coliform contamination, as we say, in all areas across the city. It is a matter of shame for us that about 70 years after independence, we have to face such basic issues. And what is the risk? Children under 10 and adults over 60 whose immune systems get reasonably affected, or young children whose immune systems are developing, are at the highest risk of developing gastrointestinal problems or other related diseases. The matter currently which we today are discussing is before or being heard by Justice Arun Mishra and Justice Deepak Gupta. Now, they have directed the Jal Board to do its basic job of supplying clean water. But as of now, it's not happening. To discuss this issue and how such issues should in a way be dealt with by the courts and also the lower judiciary, I have with me Justice A.K Sikri, who's the judge of Singapore International Commercial Court now, the Singapore Supreme Court, but was the former judge of the Supreme Court of India and the former justice of the Chief Justice of the Punjab and Haryana High Court. I also have Advocate Meghna Mishra with me in the studio. She is partner with Karanjawala and Company, who has dealt with such kind of cases. I would like to welcome both of them to our studio. And sir, I would like to start with you first. Could you lay the ground for this issue? Because I'm sure you've dealt with many such issues in your career.
Actually, many such issues, I think, as far as High Courts and Supreme Court, they are concerned, most of the judges are grappling with these issues day in and day out.
Yes.
There's no doubt about it. You rightly said the effect and the adverse effect of not getting clean water, and rightly stated that retort that look, even after 70 years of our independence, we have not been able to provide even clean water to our citizens. I mean, as it was said that the constitution makers at that time, and if you see these debates that this legislative assemblies, debates at that time of the Constituent Assembly, and the various provisions which are made, particularly relating to directive principles of the state policy, that minimum requirement which is there for every human being, roti kapda makan, was to be provided, and a clean environment, clean water, etc. is the minimum thing. And if you see over a period of time, way the Article 21 has been interpreted, Article 21, although it says that no person shall be deprived of his life and liberty except by the process of law. Process of law, of course, is now considered as due process of law. But then the Supreme Court has said that this life and liberty, which is stated, or life we say, it is not mere animal existence.
Yes.
The life has to be a decent life with dignity. And with dignity means that all necessary things which are required to live a dignified life should be given to every human being, every citizen in this country, which includes naturally clean water.
Clean water.
It's not only water, it is clean water.
Air.
And clean air. So environment, when we talk of this clean air and clean water, and although it is the responsibility of the executive of the state government to provide all this, and it is not only in the constitution, it is now in the form of acts also passed by legislature, passed by the another wing of the government itself or the state itself. And we have Air Act, we have Water Act, we have the Sea Act, etc. So all these acts deal with are against the pollution, air pollution, against water pollution, etc. And the entire machinery is there how this is to be enforced. So therefore, but in spite of all that, somehow it is a sorry state of affair that they have failed.
Before I go to Meghna, I want to ask you, the BIS has been requested by the Supreme Court to improve quality of water supplied in Delhi. Justice Arun Mishra, Justice Deepak Gupta, who was dealing with the matter. Since the water is not conforming to the ISO standards, you think is the job of the Supreme Court to get into these matters, and what would the judges be feeling, that are we going to deal with water being supplied in Delhi?
It's a very, very important question you have raised, yes. and it's a question, it's in a way which as we know in the Constitution, we have a provision, or this is one of the basic features of the Constitution as interpreted by the Supreme Court in Keshwan and Bharti also, which we call separation of powers. Now, separation of powers, as per that, judiciary is supposed to decide only the cases, not to go into the policy making or to have the enforcement of the policy, etc. Now, at the same time, what happens when we come to this particular, I am not talking or making it a general debate of many other kinds of policy issues, I am not on that, where there may be some I mean justified criticism of the Supreme Court that look, in everyday affairs Supreme Court is or the High Courts are interfering. But when it comes to human rights, when it comes to, as I said, it is providing of clean water is not only a part of directive principles of the state policy, which is unenforceable, but it is a facet of Article 21 also. When it is an article of 21 and it becomes a fundamental right, if it is my fundamental right to get clean water, then I have right to approach the court to enforce that right.
But I want to ask you, sir, Justice Deepak Gupta and Justice Arun Mishra is hearing this matter. They are issuing certain directions. We know as for a fact, very difficult to improve it in a short span of time. Do you think the courts will get frustrated getting the executive to do its job in such things? Because you know these things are generally not done easily in India. And this has been an experience of people as well as the courts.
You see, you are very right. Normally, this is a job which judiciary should not be doing. But what happens, in the first instance, it is the government or the executive which should do its job. And when it is failing and the citizens, then they feel that they have no other alternative but to knock the door of the courts. And therefore, they do it, not that they say that, look, government is not doing, you do it. It is not your job. It is not the job of the government. But then they come on the basis of some legal principles. Here they say, look, I have a right to get clean water.
So this is fundamental right,
and it is a fundamental right. Government is breaching or violating my fundamental right. Please enforce. So therefore, in a way, if we look it into from the prism of Article 21, then the court gets jurisdiction to decide. Of course, in the process, when such cases are taken up, etc., then how much one should do, to what extent the court should go, may be a matter of debate. But the taking up of these issues which relate to fundamental rights, then the court assumes jurisdiction, and rightly so.
That's a fair point. Meghna, you've heard Justice Sikri on these 2-3 issues that we raised now. Could you give us your opinion on each of these issues? These matters have been landing up far too often before our courts. It looks like our judges are in the everyday, they're required, because people are aggrieved. They go to the courts, clean the garbage, clean this nala, introduce CNG buses. So all that has to be done by the executive has to be done by the courts. For example, Justice Arun Mishra, Justice Deepak Gupta are now having to tell the government 70 years after independence, oh, at least supply clean water. I mean, look at it from a layman's perspective. It's the Supreme Court of India, which is now telling in the capital at least supply clean water. It has got fecal contamination. It is a tragedy of orangutan proportions, isn't it?
I agree there, Tarun, but one point which I wanted to make. If not Supreme Court, where does the man go? And, and we must give our Supreme Court full credit, because in 2001, when they passed the order that CNG buses, Justice Kirpal had passed the judgment. CNG buses were introduced. At that point in time, everybody knew that pollution was already an issue in Delhi.
But it was the court's hands was forced, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. And then even these smog towers which were installed, whether it should be the guns to be installed. Unfortunately, I agree, Supreme Court, if things were working, if the machinery worked.
We're wasting the time of our Supreme Court.
Well, in a sense, perhaps if the machinery works, Supreme Court may not have had to go into these details. But today, when it is not, as a citizen, as a person who lives in the city, where else do I knock? And I'm grateful and glad that...
let me tell you one thing at this stage, and being a judge for 20 years, that judges are not very happy in doing all this.
They're not happy.
No, they're not happy. Yes, but then when it comes to, when the cause is brought before the judge, and we are sensitive people, we are sensitive to the needs of the society, we are sensitive to the needs of the citizens. And when we see that, look, a justice is not done to particular section of the society, and here clean water is not provided to the people, and if the other wing of the government is or the state is failing its duty, and law gives us some way out to exercise our powers, then maybe hesitantly, unwillingly, but we have to do it, because somebody has to do it.
But you agree it's waste of precious judicial time?
Yes. I would say, I tell you very interesting example I give, and that is when I was acting Chief Justice of Delhi High Court. You know, just before rainy season, the corporations, in municipal corporations in Delhi, they are supposed to de-silt the nalas and drains, etc., because otherwise when the rains come, they should not be overflowing, all those things are there. And year after year, every May, we will find a writ petition is filed in Delhi High Court saying that municipal corporation is not doing, direct them to do it. Now, I was acting Chief Justice and a petition was filed. Notice was issued in that case. Now, the counsel for the municipal corporation comes and says that your lordship may pass the order and we will do it.
Is it?
Yes.
So to do your own job, you need the lordship's order.
Exactly. That is what I told him. I said that, look, in the Delhi Municipal Corporation Act, it is a statutory duty of the municipal corporation to do this job. Why you need our order? So if in the first instance, of course, in last 8-10 years, the situation has improved, not significantly, to some extent, I would say, but then why such causes should be brought at all if in the first instance the particular authority does its own job, which is it is required.
That's a very important point, sir, that you brought forth for all our viewers. If you see in a way that executive is not acting, judiciary is being forced to act because people have no recourse other than the judiciary. So they have to do their bit of policy making, if not policy making, at least to get the executive to act for the job for which its people are paid for. They get pensions, all of that. But let's take this issue a bit further. Samples are taken from 12 Janpad, which is a minister's house. Samples were taken from Krishi Bhavan. What is the kind of contamination that is there? Aluminium, magnesium, hardness, coliform contamination. In Buradi, it's magnesium, calcium chloride, manganese, and aluminium. All of this can call aluminium, can call Alzheimer's. Somebody, I mean, look at a government employee working in Krishi Bhavan or say staying in Buradi. He's drinking this water day in and day out, will have Alzheimer's at the age of 70, 75 because aluminium causes that. At least this is for all of us to know. Are we risking life and liberty in this democracy? What do you feel?
Absolutely, and I think this is a very basic air, water. I mean, animal-like existence is not what is guaranteed by the Constitution. You know, right to life does not mean this type of life. And in the city, in the capital city, Tarun, you know, and I have 2 small children, and I fear for them that I'm bringing them up here.
Do you think the courts would be very worried given this kind of report that they have now come across? I mean, at least
I think they have directed that a better report needs to be filed, and one hopes, and this was brought to a lot in the limelight. But effectively, I don't really know what is being done.
And do you feel it's a tragedy that not even one sample is conforming to the standards that the government lays for itself, which not somebody else?
It speaks volumes of where we are.
I'll go to Justice Sikri, sir. In India, we have seen, in Bangalore, you had this thing about garbage. The court stepped in. You had the air pollution matter, which you yourself dealt with when you were in the Supreme Court. Now, judicial officers across the country will be inundated with matters which many of us, we don't know. That garbage being strewn by the roadside, nalas being filled with garbage. Somebody who's got vast experience is, how are judicial officers supposed to tread in this area? Would you be able to advise?
See, I tell you, for judicial officers, I would say that there are 2 ways of looking at these kinds of issues and then deal with such issues. One is, once we accept that these are the issues which involve human rights or fundamental rights of the citizens. Now, normal perception is, insofar as enforcement of fundamental rights is concerned, it is the function of the High Court under Article 226 when the writ is filed, or the Supreme Court under Article 32 when the writ is filed. But that is not so. The judicial officers are equally not only bound by it, but should be inspired by what our constitution says.
Yes.
I always say, and there have been various programs now, I'm happy to tell you, in various judicial academies where I have been going, and National Judicial Academy also, what we talk about is constitutional vision of justice.
Yes.
And this constitutional vision of justice meant for judicial officers, not I am talking of High Court judges and Supreme Court judges. So, how even the judicial officers should keep in mind the ethos of the constitution and implement. Now, I give you simple example, and which I keep telling, and then I will come to this particular subject. What happens when we talk of human rights or right to liberty under Article 21, it is not only the High Court or the Supreme Court. A person who is arrested by the police and is brought before the court. Now, he has to be brought before the magistrate. Now, while remanding, giving him police remand or judicial remand, whether that is necessary or not in a given case, because it involves the freedom of the individual. So, if or grant of bail, it involves the freedom of. So, if a person is entitled to bail and you don't give that bail, and even if you keep a particular person in jail, in custody for 1 day or 2 days, you have in a way committed the infraction of his right under Article 21. So, therefore, the courts have to be very sensitive. So, likewise, now when we come to these issues of when such kinds of issue is that such cases are filed, and they are issues of human rights. So, therefore, this is what they are doing within the frame of a particular law. But it is not that like Municipal Corporation Act, etc., which I have said. But such provision should not be seen totally a provision of that particular act. They should be seen in a larger perspective, that these are the human rights of the individuals also which are affected, and that therefore the mandate of the Constitution should be kept in mind at the back of it. So, you mean they should have been
treated by the judicial officers across the country as a human rights issue?
Yes.
Good water
they should, and they should implement with that sensitivity. This is what I am saying. That is one. Second, in any case, that was second aspect. As I said, that look, these are some of the duties of the authorities. Like it is a duty of the Delhi Jal Board, it is a duty of the Municipal Corporation authorities to take care of these things. And these are statutory duties. We have as far as High Court or Supreme Court judges are concerned, I mean, we can issue writs, and one of the writs is writ of mandamus. Writ of mandamus is commanding a particular authority to do the job which is statutorily required to perform, but it's failing to perform. And likewise, same power is there even with the lower judiciary, which we call not mandamus, writ of they don't issue writs. But if there is a provision in the act and a particular authority is not doing it, then this is we call it mandatory injunction. So they can issue a mandatory injunction, do this. So this mandatory injunction is done, this a particular relief is granted or particular direction is issued, keeping in view the provisions of the act, that this provision of the act mandates you to do this, you are not doing, I am issuing a mandatory injunction. So therefore, the lower judiciary can see the matters from both the angles.
So you mean the lower judiciary should also come down hard where human rights are concerned? In terms
and there are few judges who come. I have seen of even the lower courts.
Have they?
They have been keeping.
Your conscientious judges who take it up.
Yes, they take it, and it should be. I would be very happy if every judge in the lower judiciary takes up the job in this
That's a good point that sir made. Now, going across to Meghna, can we make this case of Delhi a case in point? It not concerns just the water, or it causing a few diseases, people dying. That's okay, that will happen. Of course, we know the state of the country in these kind of issues of health and sanitation. But it's the capital and it's India's brand image. We're talking of a $3 trillion economy, its capital and the latent zone, even that is. Do you think this case, and I'll be very in a sense, pessimistic, will frustrate our judges because, for example, Justice Arun Mishra, Justice Deepak Gupta, though they have issued this direction, do you think it will be very difficult for them also to get this implemented that Delhi's water is free of fecal contamination? Because, of course, it will involve investment. Of course, it will involve a lot of executive interest and a lot of political will also at some place. Do you think this is a test case for even the judiciary? Because it's a Delhi issue, it's got national attention now.
Tarun, to go back again, I think Supreme Court has time and again proved that it is able to. It does not, and it works tirelessly.
Yes.
One example, that corridor that had to be built to stop the vehicles, the diesel vehicles, year on year, it's the Supreme Court which does it. Yes. No, but it is only the Supreme Court that is doing it.
You mean it can get it done if it gets...
Even petrol BS6 standards.
Yes.
So you mean, sir, if the Supreme Court, I mean, in this case, Justice...
it is both ways. In many cases, yes, the orders are passed which remain on papers and are not implemented. But in many cases, the Supreme Court has been able to get this implemented also. Right?
Because
so
for me as somebody who...
committee, for example,
yes.
you know, it was set up, so they formed it and they oversee it. Of course, they can't do it day to day. They also realize that. But since there is no fear of anything else, at least the Supreme Court directives
but sir, I would like to, and in a sense, because you said the Supreme Court, and let's take this case. Judiciary decides issue of many corporate houses, which may be concerning the economy at some small level and some 10,000 employees that work for that corporate. But when this case is presented before the judiciary, you're talking of 2 crore people who live in Delhi. And this issue at least concerns all of them. So do you think this, in a sense, is being watched by each one of them?
Yes,
at least a lot of concerned citizens would watch this case. So in a sense, what Justice Deepak Gupta and Justice Arun Mishra do in this case will be watched by all of them, that how hard they come down on these organizations to get it implemented. Do you think it's a test case in that sense for the judiciary?
Yeah, it is a test case, no doubt about it. At the same time, what I feel is if the judges are smart enough, and they are, and they can bring all the entire machinery around and ensure that it works. But I tell you, one good thing is, it's not that 20 million or 2 crore people of this city which are affected. Yes, those 2 crore people include these persons from Delhi Jal Board also.
Obviously.
They include the central government ministers also, the state Delhi government ministers also, and their officials as well. So therefore, everybody is
involved. It involves all of us.
So therefore, why not the Supreme Court can motivate them, can inspire them, can rather tell them that, look, it is in your interest as well.
Not only issue orders, but build consensus.
Yes, build consensus. Actually, I think if they bring around all the stakeholders together, tell them to work on this, make your plans. Yes, that policy making, we are not doing it.
But we are at least...
But we want everybody to have clean water. The water should be nickel free, as you are saying. And what way you do, we can, there can be an expert committee, there can be this institutes like NIRI or other such institutes.
So you mean if this has to be a case which is remembered by everyone for posterity, then the court has to do it?
A court has to do this. So all this can be done. There can be, say, a committee can be constituted which may have representative from the central government, which may have representative from the state government, which may have representative from Delhi Jal Board, and scientists, maybe public-spirited persons.
Since this is the capital of India and the whole world sees us, and this report doesn't go unnoticed to investors also, do you think this can be made an example of that? How
this can be made example? I think, as I know, both the judges, they must be having this thing in mind.
That to make
we have to make it happen.
That's a fair point. Any closing comment from you, Meghna, on this issue?
It is with that hope that we are still continuing to live in this city, and that they will make it happen.
So in a sense, like we discussed in our earlier episode too, it is the courts, at least in Delhi, as we saw, they gave us the CNG buses, which help us breathe. There was a cracker judgment which helps us breathe free on Diwali, where we had environment-friendly crackers. Now it's up to Justice Arun Mishra and Justice Deepak Gupta to ensure that we don't die of Alzheimer's or any such disease because aluminium is present in our waters. I know it's a tough job. It's not the court's job. But as you know, in this country, there is a joke in the bureaucracy that if I may say it in Hindi, यार अगर हमको नहीं करना कोर्ट से करा लो, कोर्ट को भेज दो. So yeah, you know, just don't do it. Just put it to the courts. Let the court decide. At least I think this needs to be made a test case, because water involves all of us. Nobody is getting any separate water supply. Thank you so much, viewers, for joining us on this episode. I would like to thank my panelists, Justice A.K Sikri and Advocate Meghna Mishra, for sparing their time and joining us on this part of Legally Speaking. This specific issue we'll revisit again in the next 3 to 4 months to see what has happened and also track whether Delhi Jal Board is up to its job. Thank you so much.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.